It is Sunday, December 11th, 2016. I'm in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I'm engaged in my alternative spiritual practice of protesting against Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy. And I've just completed a half-hour or so stretch of protesting, and I'm just starting up another half-hour segment of video. And we're looking at the Wayside pulpit of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, also known as the Wayward pulpit, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of just how wayward, as in, you know, basically hypocritical bullshit, what's written here often is. In other words, you know, the words are nice, but they're not reflected by the actual behavior of Unitarian Universalists. You know, Unitarian Universalists, Montreal Unitarians, in my direct personal experience and also observation of, you know, other things that happen in the Unitarian Universalist religious community, do a terrible job of living up to the claimed principles and purposes and ideals of Unitarian Universalism. And this, you know, this is supposedly a kind of ideal, supposedly a kind of principles. This is specifically the Unitarian Church of Montreal's mission statement, but what I find interesting about it is how incredibly vague and completely devoid of any kind of moral values it is. You know, this mission statement could actually be interpreted in a very, very negative light, because it really depends on what exactly the spiritual community known as the Unitarian Church of Montreal welcomes. Depends on what the Unitarian Church of Montreal nurtures. Depends on what it inspires. Depends on what it challenges. And it depends on the kinds of actions Montreal Unitarians take in the world. And I can say right off the bat that the spiritual community known as the Unitarian Church of Montreal does in fact welcome certain members, actual people, who are, you know, not very nice people, really. People who are quite unethical, quite immoral, quite corrupt, abusive, violent, and sometimes, you know, we can even say evil. So yes, the spiritual community known as the Unitarian Church of Montreal welcomes evil and corruption and immorality and unethical behavior and so on. So, you know, it welcomes not only the people, but also the behaviors. Same thing goes for the nurturing. Unitarian Church of Montreal, to say nothing of the larger Unitarian Universalist religious community, nurtures people, especially UUA clergy and UUA leaders, who behave in, you know, quite unethical, immoral ways, who are corrupt, who are in some ways evil, or do evil things at least. You know, the UUA nurtures these people and does very, very little to hold them accountable for their actions. Yeah, we're getting to that. Inspires. Same kind of thing, you know, the Unitarian Church of Montreal and the Unitarian Universalist religious community, more generally, you know, in various ways actually inspires its members to do things that are immoral and unethical and borderline criminal, and even actually criminal, and yes, in some cases, definitely evil. Challenges. Well, the Unitarian Church of Montreal and the Unitarian Universalist Association, and, you know, more broadly, the Unitarian Universalist spiritual community, challenges good stuff. You know, it challenges human rights, challenges truth, challenges justice, challenges, well, I'm going to leave it at that for now. I could go on, but I don't want to be too long-winded. But, you know, they challenge things that they shouldn't be challenging is what it comes down to. And, yeah, together we take action in the world. Well, you know, this specifically refers to the Unitarian Church of Montreal, but it can also be applied more broadly to the Unitarian Universalist religious community and the UUA and so on. And, well, I hate to say so, but some of the actions that Montreal Unitarians and UUA clergy and UUA leaders take in the world are, yes, immoral, unethical, borderline criminal, actually criminal, evil. Oh, and did I mention batshit crazy? Yeah, some of the actions that Montreal Unitarians and UUA leaders and UUA clergy and Unitarian Universalists take in the world, yeah, some of those actions can be reasonably described as insane and batshit crazy and so on. So really this mission statement really is quite meaningless, to borrow a word from Reverend Ray Drennan. So I'm going to go back to circulating with picket signs. Got some more people coming into the church, and not quite sure what time it is. I'm assuming that it's probably past 10 o'clock now, maybe quarter past. I expect the... Oh yes, this is good. So, this woman in particular sort of sings and hums to herself as she approaches the church, seeing my picket signs, essentially doing her best to just totally ignore the protest, pretend nothing's wrong. It's, you know, maybe even a sign of defiance or something. She's been doing this for some time now. And again, all it really does is illustrate the willful ignorance and psychological denial that not only Montreal Unitarians, but, you know, in my experience, the vast majority of Unitarian Universalists wallow in when confronted by clergy misconduct of all kinds, both sexual and non-sexual, and then various other injustices and abuses that take place within the Unitarian Universalist religious community. You know, Unitarian Universalists are really good at getting on a high horse and pointing a finger loudly and stridently at various injustices outside of the Unitarian Universalist religious community, often in a way that's largely empty posturing. You know, they get up and shout and scream, but they don't really do a hell of a lot to try and correct things when it gets right down to it. Just a lot of look at me, you know, I'm speaking out against this. But see how many Unitarian Universalists speak out against clergy misconduct within the Unitarian Universalist Church. See how many Unitarian Universalists speak out against the anti-religious intolerance and bigotry that's so common within the Unitarian Universalist religious community, and so on. You know, when there is an injustice or an abuse that takes place within the Unitarian Universalist religious community, it's amazing how suddenly very, very quiet and silent Unitarian Universalists become. So just a lot of two-faced hypocrisy. You know, I've pointed this out numerous times. You know, how they get up and stridently point the finger at this, that, or the other injustice that takes place outside of the church. And, you know, when I point out to them, well, you know what? You know, you've got some very similar injustices taking place within the church. You know, the scale may not be the same because you're such a tiny religious community, but, you know, the things that you're loudly and stridently protesting against, some of them actually take place within your church. So, yeah, just incredible two-faced hypocrisy on the part of not just Montreal Unitarians, but the vast majority of Unitarian Universalists that I have the misfortune to have to deal with at times. Oh, this guy. Okay, this is a local guy. I only caught a glimpse of him, but I'm pretty sure it's this guy who's in the past gotten in my face. Oh yeah, it looks like him. He's looking back here, yeah. This guy's gotten in my face a few times. He's not a member of the church to the best of my knowledge, but he's basically berated me and so on for my protest. I think he's learned it's best not to. Anyhow, it's really funny actually. One winter, some winters ago, he jumped on, well, he kicked my picket signs down and then he jumped on them. They were on the snow. They acted like a sled, so his feet slipped out from under him and he fell on his ass. And unfortunately, I think my camera might have been running, but it didn't catch that for whatever, or it might have just caught, it didn't catch it properly. So that hilarious little interaction was not properly recorded for posterity. But I think the guy does understand that my camera is running now, and he's a little bit more careful about what he says and does. Here's John Inder, one of the people most responsible for my being out here. You don't look too happy today, John. You don't look too happy today. He did actually look kind of haggard, actually. So, we'll continue to walk back and forth. But yeah, John Inder, former president of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, indeed president up until quite recently. And basically, he really maxed out his time as president, to say nothing of other leadership positions. He's been in some kind of leadership position here for probably the better part of 20 years, and he's been very involved in not doing anything to deal responsibly with the local injustices and abuses that I'm protesting against, to say nothing of the more broader, international ones. But he's also been actively involved in trying to suppress my protest in various ways. So basically one of those immoral, unethical, corrupt, and yeah, to some extent evil Unitarian Universalists I'm talking about. John may not think what he's doing is unethical or immoral or corrupt or indeed evil, but the vast majority of people, when presented with the facts about what John Inder has done and what John Inder hasn't done, because there are these things known as sins of commission, also known as negligence, that John Inder is clearly responsible for. There's things he could have and should have done that he didn't do that would have probably prevented me from even beginning this protest, but there's certainly things he could have done after the protest started that, would have brought it to an end and would have ensured that some justice was actually done. But no, instead of, doing the things necessary to provide justice, John Inder participated in the perversion of justice. Yes, I'll raise that term again, perversion of justice. It's one of the issues that we're protesting against. So in his own way, Montreal Unitarian John Inder is guilty of various types of perversion of justice, both through actual actions, but also through refusing to take actions that would lead to some real justice. Anyhow, I think we're going to not keep this protest going too long this morning. I don't think it's going to go much beyond an hour. Started around 9:30 something, and I think we'll go to 11:30 at the latest. Well, actually, yeah, I'll go to probably at least 11. And yeah, well, I do keep up the good work. It's unfortunate that you can't do the good work that's necessary. What? I didn't catch that, but what I was saying is it's unfortunate you can't do the good work necessary to ensure that justice is done. Oh yeah, wave your hands, pretend there's nothing wrong. Yeah. So this guy is actually one of the Montreal Unitarians who has threatened me in the past. He actually threatened to punch me into a state of unconsciousness His actual words, if I remember correctly, were come back next week, or it might have been come back next Sunday, and I'll punch your fucking lights out. That's his exact words. So I can't remember if he said Sunday or next week, but it was one or the other, and everything else is like 100% quote. So, you know, come back next Sunday and I'll punch your fucking lights out, or come back next week and I'll punch your fucking lights out. So I debated whether or not I should report this threat to the police. You know, I'm not the kind of guy who goes running to the police every time, you know, some threat is made, or someone steals my picket signs, or even if someone assaults me and so on. But this threat, you know, all things considered, I thought, you know, I think what I'll do is I'll report it to the police, and I'll let them decide what they want to do about it, which is often my fallback position. You know, I'm not like stridently demanding that the police do something all the time, but I am sometimes, actually fairly rarely, putting something out there for them to consider and decide, you know, what they want to do. And I have to admit that sometimes they fall on their face through, you know, not doing things that they really should be doing, and so on. But anyway, I reported this guy's threat. I'm trying to remember his name. It's Jim. I know his first name is Jim. I just can't seem to remember the last name. But, you know, I actually called 911, and I said, you know, well, basically had this, you know, what I consider to be, you know, not a very serious threat made against me. And I, you know, told them what the threat was. You know, come back next week and I'll punch your fucking lights out. And the 911 dispatcher said, oh, death threats. I said, well, it's not a death threat. He's threatening to punch me out, you know. 911 dispatcher says, yes, well, you know, when people are punched into a state of unconsciousness, they don't always, you know, come to. They don't.
Insulting.
What?
You're insulting.
Oh dear, am I insulting? Well, I'm telling the truth. So if the truth's insulting, that's your problem, not mine.